Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to the BAMF podcast. This is our inaugural episode of our Ghost show, in which this lovely gentleman over here, Christopher McGlothlin, gets to talk about his love of, well, Chris, how would you describe Ghost Show?
Well, due to some unfortunate things that happened to me toward what turned out to be the end of my career in the tabletop gaming industry, I just got tired of writers being treated like crap. In particular, I got tired of being treated like crap. And that plus having done it for nearly 25 years, I had a lot of accumulated, hey, I've always wanted to work with. And so I was sort of floundering around looking for something to do, and then it was just a random Facebook conversation with the legendary Jim Lauder, and Jim mentioned, "Hey, I've got an essay about Witchfinder General that's just been, the company went out of business before it ever got published," and I started thinking, unpublished Jim Lauder, and that sort of that was the pebble that created the mighty avalanche of me calling up all of the people I've always wanted to work with, like Bill Bodden, and saying, "Hey, you want to do a thing?" And apparently, I built up a better reputation than I realized because my pitch for working for Ghost Show, it sounds like something from the Dirty Dozen. It sounds like somebody like trying to talk people into a suicide mission. It's like, I can't pay you a lot. I can't guarantee it'll be published. And also, it won't sell that many copies, and but God bless these lovely people. And here's where, again, I owe a great thanks to Jim Lauder, because once he realized that I was serious, he started putting me in touch with wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people that I would not have met otherwise, like Lisa Morton there. I mean, really, even if we had not gained $1, it's just been such an honor and a pleasure to meet talented, insightful people who really they kind of define what a professional writer should be: on time, professional. And it's the type of people that I want Ghost Show to be all about. I want this to be a place where they can come and create and be rewarded with it, with not only decent treatment, but rock star treatment and a decent amount of wage, and hopefully a lot of fun, because ultimately that's what this should be about, right?
So when you say rock star treatment, does everyone get a bowl of brown M&Ms?
I want red ones.
Red ones. Fair enough. Well, hey, Chris, that was a lovely introduction. I did not want to interrupt you, but what I was really aiming for was this Sunday night, the Ghost Show podcast.
Yes.
And the pitch I was stumbling across is, this is Chris's chance to talk about his love of horror movies.
Yes.
And I just now uploaded some very cheesy intro music. This will be short, I promise. And that's why that's why I work in a whole different field than audio visual. But so Sunday nights, interspersed with our Wrestling with Comics podcast, Chris, the Ghost Show boss, will be taking us on a field trip on a spooky school bus through his and his collaborators' love of cinema fantastique, or something sounding much cooler than that. So,
spooky field trip.
Spooky field trip.
If you had that answer, I should have just asked you. Mike, tell people what my podcast is about.
Well, I'm just this guy who's strangely yellow-orange up in the left-hand corner. Who wants to hear what I have to say? I've got, obviously, don't even have a camera that works right. So, it's more interesting if you folks talk. And, well, Lisa, I am seeing this weird. Is that a baby doll face hanging on the brown part of your wall? That's yeah. Oh my gosh, what is that?
It's actually the Bride of Frankenstein.
Ah.
It's a vintage Halloween mask, and you can't. The green chin right above it is her husband, the monster.
Ah, I got you.
Awesome.
That is cooler and less frightening than I thought it was. That's pretty nifty.
Yes. This time last week, I was sitting in my local Alamo Draft House, seeing that on a big screen.
No, sweet.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
All right, we'll just set the table. Chris runs Ghost Show. This is the Ghost Show podcast, the Ghost Show, as you might say.
Yes.
And as this big thing Ghost Show is doing is the Transgressive Horror Anthology, which is right now, on Kickstarter, with this cool cover with the bloody mouth. And you can go back it right now. We're off to a strong start, 25% funded last I checked.
Yes.
And I will put the link up there. And Lisa and Bill are two of the contributors. And why don't we start with Lisa, since we've been talking to you already, and you can tell us about just give us a quick introduction, tell about the movie you're doing, and then we'll go to Bill. Then we'll dive deeper into everyone's film if that works for everybody.
I did a Hong Kong movie from about 10 years ago called Dream Home, and it is a hardcore slasher movie. When this came out in Hong Kong, it got their Category 3 rating, which means that it was essentially rated X. It is insanely gory and insanely violent, but what I really love about it, although I love that stuff too, frankly, is that the slasher is also the heroine, and it's a woman. So in this movie, you essentially get the slasher and the final girl are one and the same, which is something that doesn't happen very often. I know a few people I talked to mentioned things like High Tension from France. Although with High Tension, it's kind of tricksy and gimmicky. In this one, from the first frame of the movie, it's her. It's not hidden, and yet you never completely lose sympathy for her, even when she is like killing a pregnant woman. Yeah, which is not a huge spoiler alert because it comes pretty early in the movie, and the movie just keeps going from there.
I have questions, but Bill Bodden is one of two writers on this podcast who's currently wearing a death-themed Hawaiian shirt. And Bill, why don't you tell us about yourself and the movie you're doing for the anthology?
I've been writing, like Chris, been writing in the tabletop gaming industry for many years now, and Chris and I met because we were affiliated with the same company at that time, and he pitched this idea to me about this anthology of essays, and I said, "Yeah, great, I'm in." And then agonized over what to write about because there's so many fascinating and really fun horror films out there. I ended up choosing Congo, which strictly speaking isn't a horror film, but it has a lot of horror elements in it. Really strong horror elements. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, period. And researching it for the article, doing a deeper dive was kind of fun. Found a few interesting facts here and there that I included in my essay. And so I said, yeah, I'm in, and sent in my draft, and Chris was really happy with it. So here we are.
And not to bury the lead, but Chris himself, what movie are you covering for this, just very briefly, for the anthology, Chris?
Wow, that was such a special moment, is because I had a list of people I thought I could get, and like I got like all the people I thought I could get, and most of the people I'm like, I'll ask him for the heck of it. And then after all that wonderful outpouring of joy and support, I had to go, wait, what am I writing about? And it was a death match right to the very end between the 1964 version of Mask of the Red Death that Roger Corman directed and Vincent Price stars in, and it came down between that and the movie that would have made America all go, what? A 1971 film called The Velvet Vampire, which was, oh, here we go, the trailer. Oh my God, yes. Oh yeah.
I figure we can just play that in the background, and maybe if the sound's not on, YouTube won't. I've been getting hit with a lot of content claims lately, and a trailer you should be able to show. It's fair use. It's a promotional video, but sometimes the bots are extra hungry. So
yeah, it's the mouse's world. We're all just living in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Jane Asher. Yes, the perfect. Okay, quick story about this film. 1964. They're in England shooting. Jane Asher, the female lead, asked Roger Corman if he wants to have lunch with her and her boyfriend, and the only thing Corman's told is he's in a band. So Corman politely accepts, and he goes, and that's how he got to meet Paul McCartney, who told him about this band that he's in called the Beatles, and he was hoping like they might make some kind of impact in America someday. And Corman wished them luck, thinking like, yeah, sure, right. And I love how Corman admits at the time, he's like, yeah, good luck, pal. Good luck. Yeah, with your little Beatles thing there. Oh, yeah. Hope you make a rent on that. Okay, so yes, yeah, but that I could be gloriously wrong, but I thought I noticed something in that film that I have never heard anybody else talk about or mention, because it's regarded as a classic. I mean, you got Corman at the peak of his powers, you got Danny Haller's art direction, you got a young Nick Rogue shooting it, and Hazel Court's in it, and so many great character actors. But I started thinking of it more in context, and I'm trying to make a solid case for this being the first purely horror film where evil wins, and there's just no apology for it. It's it's like walk it off, kid. There you go. Evil wins. Yeah. So I'm making a case for it being arguably the first truly transgressive film, in the sense that you don't have this crazy reset at the end, which always makes me think of the end of Scars of Dracula, where Christopher Lee just randomly gets hit by lightning. Like, what do you got, pal? Lightning? That's a cheap effect. So yes, this is the first one where it really does send you off with a walk it off, kid. Evil wins. Death triumphant. No God. So yes, sometime down the line, I'm going to write about Velvet Vampire, just because I think more people should know about that film.
I'm still kind of hung up on when you were saying death. There's no God, but I think I've recovered.
I have to disagree with you about evil triumphs in that film.
Okay,
I mean, death triumphs. Death isn't really evil or good. What was the Price's character's name? Was he called Prospero?
Prince Prospero, yes.
Prospero,
yes. Yes, the original Royal Badness.
Definitely evil. His court, verging on evil. They could be swung either way by a convincing argument, I think. They're pretty wishy-washy about that. But, yeah, I mean, they all, spoiler alert, they all die because of the plague. But the hero and heroine escape at the end, and apparently untouched by the mask. So, I don't know.
Well, you're absolutely right, and you're absolutely right. I apologize for trying to give the 10-cent tour of my essay, but it's okay. I'll rephrase it more accurately. It's the first one where you don't have an explicit victory for good. You don't have the darling moment where the Frankenstein, where everything goes black and white. The friendly old man and Frankenstein monster fade out, and all you see on the screen is the crucifix. You're not getting that in this film. So there you
go. No, you're not.
So yes.
Yeah, there was a piece on NPR on Poe's birthday this last year. They made a point out of highlighting Mask of the Red Death.
Oh.
Yeah, it was kind of with a nod and a wink towards COVID, but
yeah, that's if I'd had like twice my word count, it's been around long enough for people to completely misread the politics of it. Yeah, I take a few pokes at that with the 2,000 words I had to work at, but yeah, it's at that age where people are inserting their own politics in it, whether it fits or not. The fate that awaits all works of art.
Well, hey, moving on, Lisa, how about we talk about your movie? Is that all right?
Sure.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Let me cue up I'll do the same thing with the trailer, kind of run it in the background with the sound off.
Cool.
And we were talking about this a little bit before the show, and this sounds really interesting. My wife's a big horror fan. I'll have to seek this out. So why don't you set it up for us, since you know it better than I do?
Yeah, it's a film from Hong Kong, and one of the interesting things that makes it really genuinely progressive, that 852 Films that we just saw the logo for, is the production company co-owned by Josie Ho, who stars in the movie. She's also the daughter of one of the richest men in Hong Kong.
Wow.
And she is an amazing actress, so it was really interesting. She also is a punk rocker, which is really rare in Hong Kong. And so you have a woman who is the daughter of a real estate and casino magnate in Hong Kong who makes and produces this movie about a woman who kills to get her dream home. Which right off the bat, I thought that was interesting because it almost makes the making of the film itself transgressive. And then we have this story about this woman who is willing to kill to get the home that she has always wanted. And the way the movie is set up, it's largely sympathetic, even though it doesn't hold back on any of the horrifying things that she does. And it's all about, obviously, the people she's going after are terrible people. They're like the kind of neighbors who play the rock and roll at 1 a.m. really loud. And secretly, you kind of wish you could do what she does to them in this movie.
If it's one thing the horror genre has missed in recent years, it's that classic Vincent Price touch where you go to kind of root for him. I still wonder if I should see a therapist every time I watch Dr. Fives. Like, I'm rooting for this maniac to kill 10 doctors and nurses. But yeah, nice comparison there. Nice take.
I like how they had the end credit scene there in the trailer. That was kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a thrill and honor to be able to shine a light on talented people like Lisa and to boost the signal on a film like this.
Yeah, I hadn't heard this before.
It was a dream to be able to write about it. I actually have written about Hong Kong film extensively. My first book from about 25 years ago was a book-length study of the work of a very influential filmmaker there named Choi Hawk.
Oh, and yes.
Yeah, that was The Cinema of Choi Hawk was my first book. And so I love Hong Kong cinema. I've watched it for 40 years at this point. I also love South Korean cinema, all kinds of Asian cinema. So it was a real pleasure to write about this one, which, like I said, far few people know and more people should.
So if people want to find out more about that book, it looks like lisamorton.com is where they can find, it looks like he had a website set up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is not how I would have spelled that name for Choi Hawk. That's interesting.
Right, yeah.
So, cool. Well, hey, Bill, let me cue up the trailer for Congo, which is an interesting choice. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
And should have that going to mute, play.
All audiences, so we should be in good shape here.
Yep, yeah, we should be in good shape. All right, there we go.
Kathleen Kennedy. We just lost all our Star Wars fans.
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble, Chris. So, yep. So this is an interesting choice. I wouldn't necessarily think of this right off the bat as a horror movie. Why'd you choose this one, Bill?
Well, again, it's, as I said, it's not strictly speaking a horror film. It's kind of more action adventure, but there are really strong horror elements in it. I mean, not to spoil too much, but the search for the monsters, what attacked this original party that are looking for the diamonds to use in telecommunication equipment, and there's also a mystery and looking for the diamonds. They find what they think are King Solomon's mines. So it's kind of a bit of an homage to that genre of film as well. One of the sort of interesting side details that I found when I was researching this is Michael Crichton. This film came out about 3 years after Jurassic Park, because everybody's, Michael Crichton, he's really hot. We gotta make more films. This had actually been in sort of under consideration and early stages of production for more than a decade before Jurassic Park even came out. There were issues. They couldn't find a director who wanted to do it. And Michael Crichton they finally did settle on a director, and Michael Crichton was really excited until he found out they couldn't use real gorillas. And then he apparently decided, just go ahead without me. I'm done.
How did he think that was going to work?
Your guess is as good as mine. Who knows? I mean, he was expecting trained gorillas, but there's kind of there's some gorillas in the movie that are a little more active, and that would be exceptionally dangerous for everyone involved. So they did okay. I mean, there's a lot of sequences where they show gorillas where it's very obviously a person in a suit. And I don't know if you're a fan of the animated show Freakazoid.
Oh yeah.
But there was an exchange at one point between Freakazoid and his cop buddy, who was voiced by Ed Asner, where they were saying they were watching Congo, and the exchange was, "Okay, is that a real gorilla? No, that's a guy in a suit." And I kept flashing back to that while I was rewatching the film, thinking this is so appropriate. But yeah, there's a lot of scenes where it's very obviously not a gorilla. They try really hard, but it's pretty difficult.
And I'm one of those Gen Xers. I didn't become embittered until I fell for all the hype around about the robot and the '76 De Laurentiis King Kong being a robot, and then you find out it's Rick Baker in a suit. Yeah, man, there's no truth in this world after that. Truth was dead to me after that.
Yeah, that's one of Matthew McConaughey's favorite films. True story.
I have found it's a lot of fun if you watch it and you pretend that Jeff Bridges is playing Jeff Lebowski. Like, just like the moment where they start shooting Kong, just slip in a fucking fascists.
There's a lot of movies that are a lot more fun if you can switch characters like that. Blade 3 becomes very entertaining if you decide it's a Deadpool movie. Little tip: if you ever have to watch that movie, like I did the other night, just.
God. Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, really, these two are exemplary of the great. I mean, this project started out as a prayer that all you need is to let talented people write, and everything else will take care of itself. And honestly, I never would have guessed that people would have picked those movies. I never in a million years would have minded the insight and that they have, or expressed it quite so entertainingly. And really just, I mean, it was just every writer seems to be coming up with something, something wonderfully fresh and unique about it. I mean, the way Nicole Winchester writes about Blair Witch Project as a women's workplace issue movie. Things that you never would have dreamed of in a million years, but you're like, wow, not only do I have this, I get to publish it. Or the way that Shannon Watkins took Alien, and it's like this is this is the film where the young ingenue who stumbles into trouble is a guy for once. Just finding little things like that in them. Oh my God, I am so thrilled about this. And to all our backers, thank you so much for helping me bring this into the world and standing up for a world where writers can write and not get shat upon by bastards. Repeatedly.
I don't know how to follow that up. But...
Yeah, that's a
yay, not bastards. There we go. We can say that. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, check out the Kickstarter. We've still got, I want to say 3 weeks left, over 3 weeks. So starting strong. It'll be in the show notes. It's right there on the banner. You get to read essays by these talented and lovely people. And we will be back next Sunday with more of them to interview about their movies and their choices.
Well, before we leave, let's be polite to our guests. Let's see if they've got anything else in the pipeline they'd like to share with our audience, because part of this is saying these are great writers, back this, and buy everything else these people have ever created. So tell us everything else you've ever created.
That's kind of a tall order, Chris.
Or just the stuff that's coming up. We'll settle for that.
All right, I'll just my most recent book was last fall. I had out a nonfiction book called "Calling the Spirits: A History of Seances." Ooh. So, yeah, if anybody ever wants to talk about how to get a real ghost into your home, I can tell you. Well, it probably won't happen, but they sure tried a lot, and it was great fun to write about it. And then coming out in a couple of weeks, I have a collection of my own short fiction called Night Terrors and Other Tales. I'll be a guest of honor at StokerCon, which is happening in just 3 weeks.
Ooh.
So yeah, that'll be really fun. I'll be talking, because I'm mainly a horror writer. So I will be talking about a lot of the different things that I've done as a horror writer at StokerCon. And then later this year, there will be a second volume out of my Weird Women anthology that I co-edited with a gentleman named Leslie Klinger. We brought out the first volume of that last year. It did really, really well, and it was so fun. It's a collection of early horror tales by women. The first volume covered 1852 to 1923. The second volume covers 1840 to 1925.
Wow.
That'll be out from Pegasus Books in the fall.
Yes.
Cool.
Awesome.
Lisa, StokerCon is it in Denver this year?
It's virtual this year. It was in Denver, and I think what their plan right now is to actually stage 2022 in Denver, so they don't lose the hotel, which is fabulous. It's the Curtis Hotel, which apparently is famous for having all these different themed stories. So, like, one entire floor is science fiction, one entire floor is apparently Barbie. Of course, everybody wants to stay in the horror floor at this convention. But, so
some people's horror would be being in the Barbie floor, I guess.
that would be mine, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually stayed down there. It's nice.
Cool.
But it's definitely that kind of hipster boutique hotel. But it's right downtown. There's a million cool things to do right around there. So I want to ask you so many questions about seances, but that's not really the focus of this podcast, so I probably shouldn't. But I
tell you what, if it funds, that should be our next one. We do a seance right here.
It's bringing me back to high school.
Wow, what kind of virtual ghosts would we call up, do you suppose?
We would have to go for like some classic horror legend. You know, you have like the ghost of Lon Chaney Jr. would stumble in with like a ghostly bottle of scotch, and
and his makeup kit. Oh, wait, you said Lon Chaney Jr.? Lon Chaney Jr. Okay, never mind.
Yes. My favorite.
It would be fun to go really meta and like call up the spirit of one of the greatest dead mediums.
Ooh.
Who'd you have in mind?
I would probably go with a gentleman from the 19th century named Daniel Douglas Hume, who was supposed to be the greatest medium who ever lived. And he was not only considered at the time to be a great medium, but he was also despised by many people, including Robert Browning, who wrote an entire poem about him called Mr. Sludge.
That's the wrong kind of immortality, I reckon.
I now want to see like the Christopher Nolan film about the feuding seance guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is kind of cool. Wow, I could ask you a lot more about seances, but Bill, let us show off your book. You sent me a link in private chats.
Yeah, this is my most recent collaboration. It's an anthology. It's based on the Werewolf the Apocalypse setting by our tabletop role-playing game by White Wolf. This is set in the Wild West, and Changing Breeds refers to wares other than werewolves.
Okay.
So there's were spiders, were snakes, were bears,
were ravens,
were crows, ravens. Yeah.
Yeah, I ran a 2-year campaign back in the 90s in Werewolf Wild West, so that's near and dear to my heart.
Nice. Okay. And the story I wrote in this is actually sort of a continuation of a story I'd written for a previous anthology that was called Darkened Streets, that was also based on World of Darkness. I happened to have picked the Wild West as the setting, and there's a pack of werewolves in that story that you meet up with again in this, but they're not the focus of the story in Changing Breeds.
Oh, cool. Have you worked in the World of Darkness before? I was going to say the company name, but I guess there's 2 or 3 companies you can talk about when you're talking about that particular setting.
Yeah, I have actually written for a couple of different books for Vampire the Masquerade for the 20th anniversary edition. Ghouls and Revenants and oh crumbs. I believe it's called Anarchs Unbound. And there's one it's not out yet that I worked on too. That's not in the vampire world, but it's in the world of darkness, which the vampires can touch on that pretty easily.
Just like with Lisa and her seances, I could ask you a lot about like Werewolf the Wild West and that whole, because like I said, I did a 2-year campaign set around the Bleeding Kansas events. Wild West. Yeah, but I have lots of metaplot questions about the old World of Darkness, but once again, not the focus of this podcast, so that would not be relevant. So, the way you guys are laughing, I'm guessing this is not an unusual thing for people want to talk to you about.
I was with I was at a convention, making a convention appearance with a previous employer, with the guy who created the entire game universe, all 4 of his line developers and 2 freelancers. And one of our fans asked us about a meta plot point. And by that time, the meta plot had spread across 4 different game lines and had been going on for like 2 or 3 years and had been added to by a bunch of freelancers. And he asked us about a meta plot point. No one in the room could could remember the what now? He was telling us what book it was in, and we were like, And I think finally we went, well, that's top secret. That's just a little, we can't really reveal that right now. And as soon as he left, we're like, what the hell? So like when the meta plot is the point where your entire company doesn't remember points of it, maybe it's gotten a little out of control there.
That's possible. Although it's cool, there's a fan who's that into it, right?
God bless them. Yes. Despite their capacity to baffle and occasionally frustrating us, yes, that's they make all this possible.
So is there a fake book up there that you pull out and it swirls around? There's a pole you slide down and there's a Chris cave down there.
The coolest thing is on the other side of this monitor, there's the bed where I was sneaking naps when we were doing distance learning in between classes. There you go. That's my deep dark secret. I was wasting your tax dollars taking naps between classes.
I don't blame you.
That's the way I want my tax dollars wasted. Let me tell you. Plenty of other ways they can be wasted that I don't approve of, but that one, I'm good.
It was either that or Middle Eastern War. I think you guys got the better end of that.
I would agree.
All right. Well, hey, Lisa, Bill, Chris, been a pleasure having you folks on. Thank you very much for making some time on your Sunday night.
Thank you for having me.
To all our listeners and viewers, thanks for checking us out. Sean Vera, always a pleasure seeing you in the comments, sir. Thanks for
Sean.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you being a backer. And to all of our listeners and viewers, we will catch you next Sunday on the Ghost Show. And